What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all having an amazing day. In today's first entitled parent story, an entitled mum and an entitled kid find out that a group of friends are going to a private beach for a lovely holiday. Now, obviously, they're not invited, but they don't care. They want to go anyway and hijack the entire event. Let's get into the story. No, your bully of a son can't go on our private beach trip. Entitled mother abandons her child. Okay, people of Reddit. I thought I'd share a story from when I was younger and when my children were still young. So, this takes place in the summer of 1975. At the time, my sons were 9 and 7 years old. Also, they were in the Cub Scouts. Like most kids, they quickly made friends with the other kids. And, as a dad, I made friends with the other dads that volunteered. Most of us got along well with the families, except for the entitled mother and her son. The mother was extremely clueless about her own son and basically refused to parent him. She was more into the lifestyle of a mum, being in mummy groups and spending her husband's money rather than being a good parent to her son. The dad was a good person but worked a lot, so he was absent. Her 9-year-old son was notoriously horrible. He was overly aggressive, he hit other children, stole items, and was extremely disrespectful towards other adults. When the other parents brought this up, she would make constant excuses for him. He's just a boy, he's just expressing himself. Your kids started it. What made it worse is that the entitled mother would pacify her son's behavior with sweets, toys, and other things that he wanted. Because of this, the other parents and I didn't invite the mother and her son to events that took place outside of Scouts. The entitled mother would often call our home about getting sleepovers or having her son play with our kids, which we were adamant about not happening. If we didn't give in, she said, "You're picking on my son by excluding him. How could you do that to a child?" She also threatened to call the governor for discrimination because she's a Baptist. So, late June, the other parents and I were talking about a beach trip to Santa Cruz and bringing our families with us. We talked through everything among the 10 other mums and dads about planning this out. The entitled mother, though, must have overheard what we were saying because she just came over with her son and said, "Can you take my son with you? I have to do something with my husband." What? Where? To Santa Cruz? No. You and your son are not invited. This is a friends-only trip. The entitled kid then says, "You're a big meanie," kicks me in the leg and runs away. "Look what you did, child hater." The entitled mum then leaves and chases after her kids. Because this was a big trip, we decided to go shopping and hit the road on Friday. We had to do lots of shopping in bulk to reasonably feed 12 adults and 18 kids. My wife and I, along with 4 other parents, were watching the cars and keeping the kids occupied. For a brief moment, I turned my attention to my car to turn the AC up, because my kids said that they were hot. I turned over and the entitled boy is there, with his bag, and the mum peeling out in her station wagon. We're all just in shock, asking ourselves, is this really happening to us? The boy's mother gave him a note that had his allergies and an emergency phone number on it. We call, but no answer. The mum's driving off. We can't leave the kid here alone, and we're not going to bring him with us, so we opted to call the police. We put the kid in the car to keep him out of the sun, and we made the call. We report the entitled mother for the abandonment of her child. They sent an officer out in 15 to 20-ish minutes. The other parents and I go back to our cars to look out for the police. When we get back, the entitled boy is pulling my 4-year-old daughter's hair. The reason why, the kids had some snacks in the cooler and didn't want to share them with the entitled kids. What later proceeded as we were running to the car was 10 of the boys pulling the entitled boy off my daughter and proceeding to beat him up. Now, the kids had 2 years of rage towards this kid bottled up inside, so what took place wasn't that surprising. The entitled kid is bleeding, crying, and says that we're all mean, and started demanding food from us. He was cussing us out, hitting things, and then said, "I want to go on the trip. I want to go on the trip. I want to go on the trip now." He kept parroting this over and over again, so I just yelled at him to shut up, which only made him cry more. Now, I will admit, I was probably in the wrong here, but this is one of the few children I have truly hated in my life. The police arrived soon after and we explained what happened. Apparently, he was then dropped off at his father's job. The mother received a child neglect charge. When she saw that our kids beat up hers, she tried to charge our kids for assault. But all in all, my friends and our kids had a great week in Santa Cruz. If you're wondering what happened to the entitled mum and her son, the mum is still married to the dad. We don't talk to her since our kids aged out of Scouts. The son is now a 55-year-old man who is a creep that tries to pick up college girls and neglects his 4 kids. Well, that's my story, Reddit. That's all, folks. I don't know, guys. I honestly feel a little bit bad for the kid on this one. Yeah, he probably wasn't liked by many people, but I mean, you were all talking about going on this big, nice trip, you know, 18 kids were going on it and he was the one that was left out. It does feel a little bit harsh. I get, obviously, nobody wants him to go. So to make the holiday better for all of you, it's probably better that he doesn't go. But surely you could have like chatted about it in a different location or like created a private chat so that the mum didn't hear about it. I don't really get how the mum even understood that you were going on this trip, to be honest. I think she like somehow found out, or you probably should have been a little bit more secretive about the planning of this trip, not speaking about it at club events. I don't know. It just feels a little bit harsh. Not on the mum though, because the mum is an absolute cow, clearly. Not even understanding that her son is, you know, a horrible kid right now. Obviously, you can grow and become a better kid, but don't pacify him, as OP says. That's the wrong way to go about it. The kid though, I kind of feel a bit bad for him, you know. He's just a kid. He wants to go on holiday, but yeah, no one wants to go with him. Now moving on to our next post. I made my entitled aunt cry over takeaway chips. Oh, by the way, that is fries, not chips as in American chips, English chips. A little bit of backstory here. When I was younger, we would celebrate either of my grandparents' birthdays by spending most of the day there, having dinner together, and then going home. Neither of my grandparents were exactly great cooks, so they'd always order dinner for the occasion. The grandchildren would get French fries, and the adults usually got Chinese food. As a kid, I certainly was not complaining. Now, something you need to know is that my dad has 2 sisters, my aunts. I absolutely love his youngest sister, and have always had a close bond with her. There's a large age difference between myself and her children, so I've babysat them from the time they were 6 months old. My dad's middle sister is a different story altogether. To use a description my British friends will be familiar with, they are scum cars. The house was always filthy to the point where there was a stack of used diapers bunched under a sofa, cigarette butts on the floor, clothes not being washed. You get the picture. Now, for some godforsaken reason, she spoiled her children absolutely rotten. Perhaps to compensate for the fact that she wouldn't offer them basic hygiene. Literally anything those children wanted was handed to them on a dinged and dusty silver platter. Now for the story. We were celebrating my granddad's birthday. I'm about 12 years old at the time and the oldest of all the grandchildren. This means I have been granted a coveted position at the adult table, whilst the children play in the front room. My granddad is discussing what we should order for food this particular time. As per usual, the Chinese takeout menu makes an appearance. Me, feeling particularly responsible and eager to prove I belong at the adult table, offer to take down the orders. The adults in the family rattle off their order one by one, and I make sure to diligently note down what everyone wants. I'm not gonna lie, 12-year-old me felt powerful. Next, it's time to take the orders for the children. I ask my good guy granddad if I can go and ask them myself and take it down. He gives me a big grin and ushers me along. Now I set to the task with the fervour of a missionary who's just landed on the shores of a heathen land. I ask my brothers and each of my cousins, yes, that includes the entitled aunt's children, what they would like for dinner. Now, this gets noted down neatly, even including the name of each person behind their specific order. I run back to my granddad with a sense of pride, as if I'd finished my first novel rather than written a glorified shopping list. He runs through the list with me and nods approvingly. He asks if I want to be the one who places the order, and boy do I. As I reach for the phone, my entitled aunt decides this is her moment to shine. She yanks my carefully curated list out of my hand and, not so quickly, reads through it. Moments later, I receive a glare that could have made Ho Chi Minh whimper. Apparently, I have made a grievous mistake. Why is there only 5 portions of fries on here? I was confused. Because there are only 5 children who are gonna eat fries? You must be stupid. Can you not count? I can count. There's me, both my brothers and your children. What about your youngest cousins? Well, one of them is 4 months old and can't have solids, and the other one doesn't like fries, so he's eating something different. The entitled aunt rolled her eyes and snorts with derision. Well, what about my babies? One portion of fries is not going to be enough. These are adult portions. They always give us way too much food anyway, and then we have to throw it away after dinner. At this point, my entitled aunt tries to snatch the phone away from me so she can make the call herself. This was her big mistake. I was, and to this day still am, a particularly stubborn person. Couple that with the fact that I did not have a lot going for me as a child, but I had my brain. So, insulting my intelligence was not something I took kindly to. I duck under her arm and race to the other side of the table, snatching the list as I go. I'm not ordering more food, this is enough. Give me that list, you little brat. Do you want to spoil my father's birthday and make people go hungry? I'm not ordering more food, this is enough. This back and forth continued in the same sort of way for another 15 minutes, with my granddad looking on rather bemused, shooting me the occasional wink. Meanwhile, my entitled aunt is getting more and more irate as I calmly keep telling her, no. By the end, she's screaming. Her face is red and blotched with a matching vein ready to burst on her forehead. So I do the only logical thing. I run into the bathroom with the entitled aunt in hot pursuit. At this moment, it has become my sole mission to sabotage this woman. I lock the door and dial the number for the takeaway place. She's now screaming, demanding I open the door right now, to which I reply, I am on the phone. I loudly and very clearly state my order to the takeaway place and give them my granddad's name, whilst my entitled aunt is still banging on the door. When I'm finished, I unlock the door and walk past her with a smirk that split my face in half. I go back to my granddad and hand him the phone, delivering the message that dinner will be ready to collect in about 15 minutes. He ruffles my hair and tells me, thanks, sweetheart. My entitled aunt, who is stuck to my heels like a bad smell, looks at this, loses whatever was left of her composure, and starts sobbing loudly. She complains to my granddad what a horrible child I am, and that he should call the takeaway place back and rectify my order. But my granddad is done with this in about 2 seconds. He levels her with a look and calmly states, my daughter, you have lost in more ways than one. Get yourself together or go home. My entitled aunt locked herself in an upstairs bedroom for the rest of the evening and refused to speak to anyone. Food arrived about 20 minutes later, and as predicted, we had more than enough food to feed everyone. To be fair, I do totally respect what your granddad did there to his own daughter, saying, look, what are you actually doing here? You're mugging yourself off, first of all, because you're arguing with my granddaughter, who is 12. You're a fully grown woman with kids. But I really like that he doesn't really care that, you know, he is her daughter. It's not that important because she's just being an absolute prat in this situation and he's called her out for it. So yeah, well done to him. Anyway, guys, that is going to do it for this episode of Entitled Parents. Really hope you guys liked this one. If you did, go down and drop a like for me on the video. Comment down below something funny to make me laugh, because why not? And also, watch some more videos right away while subscribing to the channel at the same time. You're legends. See you tomorrow. Peace.